Hey everybody, it's John, and on today's John's Briefs, we have Terry from Firearms Legal Protection, and we are here at the 338 Club at C2 Tactical in Scottsdale. And we want to talk about something today that I don't think a lot of self-defenders like to think about, and that is the civil liability of our actions. Today's video is brought to us by the generosity of Firearms Legal Protection. Firearms Legal Protection is a legal defense program for lawful gun owners. You win the fight, and they will help you win the fight after the fight for the rest of your life. There's a link in the description for a coupon code for a discount for all active self-protection watchers. Terry, I think one thing that people think all the time is, I see this in statute in some states that, for instance, here in Arizona, we have a law in the books that says that conduct that is justified under this chapter is immune from civil liability. And people think, and they say, hey, I can't get sued for that. Is that true?
In some states, not a majority, but some states, that has come forth. But here's the interesting thing what people forget. Sometimes someone will try you and sue you, and let's say you don't respond. Oh no, the law says this, so I don't have to do that. You're in bad shape at that point.
Yeah. Summary judgments suck.
They do. They absolutely do. The bigger thing you got to look at is, someone's going to push that law. Now I'll give you an example. Florida. I know we talk about our friends in Florida a lot, but if you think about what goes on down there, guess what? Trayvon Martin's family has tried to sue.
Yep.
I believe, my understanding, the gentleman in Florida, the Circle K.
Yeah.
I believe
Marquez McLaughlin's family.
They're probably going to sue as well.
Sure. If I heard right, I think those are the same attorney on both of those.
Correct. And he's a very anti-gun, anti-stand your ground kind of a guy. But lo and behold, the problem is, just because you get off on the criminal side,
right,
does not mean that the civil liabilities will not follow.
So tell me some of the differences that are existing in self-defense world between criminal liability in terms of evidence and civil liability.
Well, first of all, in criminal liability, one of the things you got to remember is it's the prosecution's burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and I'm using that term again, beyond a reasonable doubt, that you have committed the crime that they've put forth. In a civil matter, let me back up real quick. In a criminal matter, guess what? You don't have to take the stand.
Right.
That's something people forget. And let me just, while we're on that subject, be careful, because some people say, I want to tell my story. Sometimes you really don't want to do that. There's a reason why people, innocent or not, don't take the stand against any type of prosecution. And the reason being, I don't care how good you are, you can go against a first-year prosecutor, they'll eat you alive. Because again,
they're a pro at it.
They're a pro, they know the rules, they know how the rules of evidence, the courtroom rules, the whole 9 yards. In a civil case though, and I'm going to use O.J. Simpson as an example. In the criminal case, O.J. Simpson never ever took the stand. But look at what happened in the civil case when it came down to money. He had to take the stand.
You are required to take the stand in a civil case.
Right. And the big difference is, remember we talked about beyond a reasonable doubt? Now it comes down to the preponderance, 51%. And a bigger thing from a jury perspective is, I got to get 12 people to unite one way or the other, not guilty or guilty. But in a civil case, all I need is 7 out of 12.
A majority on a preponderance. And a civil jury can say, oh, okay, so we think at the end of the day that there's a 70% chance that he was 70% at fault and he's 30% at fault. So whatever big number he wanted, he only gets 70% of it. So you may not get the big number, but 70% of a $50 million lawsuit is a lot of money. It's $35 million bucks. Look, I did the math in my head.
That's pretty good.
and still, so the standard is much different. Now, of course, do you want to have a great attorney to help you, and probably a team of attorneys on the criminal side? Of course you do.
But you're going to want the same on the civil side.
You really want the same on the civil side.
And a lot of people don't understand that, because again, the interesting thing is, on the civil side, if you look at most of your big law firms, guess what they are? They're civil attorneys.
Yep.
Most of your criminal attorneys don't get the $50 million judgments and things along those lines, because it's not about money, it's about your freedom. And this is, as we say, protecting you in the fight after the fight.
Right. Well, and okay, big question. It seems obvious to me then. My criminal defense attorney, who's going to help me to avoid charges if I have to use my firearm in self-defense, will that be the same attorney for my civil case?
Probably not.
Shouldn't be.
Probably not. I mean,
Whole different series of law.
it's completely different. Completely different. And you're not going to have the same judge in most cases.
Right.
Because, you know, in some counties, certain judges only hear criminal trials. And here's the other part of this. People, your jury, they're more willing to take money away from you than they are to lock you up.
Right. Yeah, and I think even our justice system is built for that, right? I mean, you know, we have that adage, better, 100 guilty men go free than one innocent man go to prison.
Correct.
And that's the underlying bedrock of our criminal justice system. But the civil system is not built like that. It is built to private parties who have a dispute, and now we have to adjudicate the percentages of what's going on with that. And people are way more willing to punish your pocketbook than they are to take away your freedom.
Yeah, and the other part about that is it's just the standard that you actually end up with. You may have a different judge on the civil side versus the criminal side, and sometimes the judge in some cases determines how much money you're going to get. Sometimes it's a situation where the jury decides. But I can tell you, if you look at facts, a majority of these cases are going to settle.
Settle out.
And when you settle a civil side, guess what happens? You're settling money. And sometimes, and I'll tell you, nothing against my friends that are civil attorneys, they make a boatload of money. And you know where their money comes from?
The defendant.
It comes from the defendant.
So I think the big lesson here is that, number one, you don't ever want to get sued. Number two, that your very best bet is to always be so far within the law and to doing justified things that your chances of losing one of these go down dramatically.
Correct.
And if you're always doing the right things and you only used your firearm because you had to, because it was the only option available, then your likelihood of facing criminal liability goes down, and your likelihood of civil liability goes down. So don't think you can, gung-ho, Rambo, kill them all and let God sort them out. You want to be the person at all times that says, no, listen, I'm a good, kind, moral, upstanding human being, and I only did what I did because I had to, because then you're far less likely to have to settle and far less likely to lose those cases.
Absolutely.
Well, Terry, thanks for the discussion. I think these are the kind of things we need to think about as self-defenders, and because otherwise, man, we end up homeless because we had to sell the ranch in order to pay the attorneys.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah. Thanks again.
Thank you.